I'm actually going to tell you, without the suspense that most people give you, how to create from the 0 point now and manifest true wealth, love, and health. I'm going to tell you exactly how to do it. This is invaluable information. It has literally saved my life over and over, and numerous other people's as well. Imagine tapping into the limitless potential of the universe and leading a life driven by the purest form of energy. This is the power of the 0 point frequency. The concept of 0 point frequency isn't just a fringe idea, it's a powerful tool for transforming our lives. Leading with the heart and tuning into this frequency can profoundly shift our well being and relationships, unlocking levels of fulfillment and harmony that we have only dreamed of. It is then that you can successfully help others. 0 point frequency refers to a state of pure potential in balance, often considered the foundational energy that permeates all of existence. It's a gateway that connects us to the infinite source of creation. By aligning ourselves with this frequency, we can tap into a state of coherence and peace that deeply resonates within us. Leading with a heart means prioritizing self-love and living with passion and allowing love to be our guiding light. Ignoring the potential of 0 point frequency and the power of this heart-centered existence can keep us stuck in patterns of stress, disconnection, and unfulfilled potential. Embracing the 0 point energy is the key to unlocking our fullest potential and living a truly fulfilled life. This is where we become unapologetically authentic. In this authenticity, your truth will never waver, and this is when you will learn to fly. The cool thing is, it's actually so easy that children between the ages of 0 and 3 do it all of the time, and then the human collective programming makes us forget how to do this. So this is not about learning, but rather remembering and opening yourself up and deprogramming yourself to access this point once again. I am going to go into physics, metaphysical, and technical answers, but always remember as I talk, a 3-year-old can do this. I want you to remember this saying, as within, so without, as above, so below. This is a very popular saying in metaphysics, and what it means is your inner world will always reflect your outer world. So when we talk about the 0 point, we're going to talk about it in 2 ways. We're going to talk about it within you and also the external world. Your internal world is what creates your reality. Why is the 0 point field so important? You're creating from the space of now, not in a space of regret, guilt, programming, or fear of the future, but in the moment of now. If we can see it and we can imagine it, we can create it, but it has to be observed and witnessed. There's been numerous experiments in physics, such as this 3-slit experiment. Things are random until observed, but you must be in a space where you can observe it. If there is a huge mountain in front of a sunset, you can't see the sunset. This is a metaphor for your blocks that are in the way of you seeing your desired reality, of you manifesting your desired reality. That is why this is so special. This isn't just about manifesting a career, but rather your dream life. This is a universal law. No matter what you classify yourself as, this applies to you. We are like radio stations. We manifest and tune into the reality from the frequency of the electromagnetic waves we resonate. Many people think just saying affirmations, doing occasional healings, listening to YouTube all day will get them in this frequency. This is just not true. This is a way of being. It's a way of existing. It's a way of life. In the 0 point, you can create rapid, instantaneous manifestations. And remember, everything is a manifestation. 24/7, we are manifesting. Whether we manifest for what we want or we don't want is a separate thing. I'm talking about manifesting the desired reality that you want. That's where Awake comes in, the Academy of Wealth, Alchemy, and Kinetic Energy. We get you to that point where you can see and observe this reality. It eliminates that mountaintop that's in the way of the sunset so that you can see, observe, witness, and then reverse engineer your reality into your existence. What we teach in Awake goes deeper than energy work. This is life-changing information. Energy fields deal with electromagnetic waves, they deal with light waves, they deal with life force like chi, prana, reiki. When we talk about energy, we are talking about our chakras, our auric field. Energy is very important. Energy can access high and low vibrational frequencies, which is why we can manifest what we don't want. If we're in a low frequency, we can get disease, illness, we can suffer. Energy carries duality. Torsion fields are spins. One goes counterclockwise and the other one goes clockwise with a vacuum in the middle. That vacuum in the middle is the 0 point. It is non-electromagnetic and carries information faster than light. It defies the law of time. Energy does not defy the law of time. Torsion fields, the 0 point defies the law of time. It interacts directly with consciousness, information, and blueprints. Remember, energy is the field, the life force that's within us. It's electromagnetic, very important, but torsion fields holds the blueprint and the information that the energy works off of. Torsion fields and energy work together. The energy will play off the information that the torsion field gives it. In order to access the reality that you want to manifest through your energy field, this is known as quantum shifting, you must be in the 0 point. The 0 point within us, the internal 0 point, is working through the field of the heart in that space of now, in stillness, where we're not having regrets from the past or worried about the future, but rather existing in the moment of now with unconditional love, gratitude, non-judgment, and acceptance. When that happens, we can connect to the 0 point within the universe, which in the universe, it speaks about the 0 point being everywhere. It permeates the entire universe. It's where everything and nothing exists. It's where anything can be changed instantaneously. When we reach that 0 point inside, we can connect with the external universal 0 point and then create realities instantaneously that we desire. But once again, in order to do that, the two 0 points externally and internally must connect through our energy fields, which must be static free and clear, which is where Awake comes in, and we get rid of the fear, anger, trauma, guilt. We unite the soul fragments, get rid of discarnate energies and imprints, as well as getting you in your pure, authentic truth so you can get in that stillness, so that your external reality will reflect that amazing internal reality that you create. That is where instantaneous shifts are created. So you can do energy work and still be on this hamster wheel because you're working from low vibrational frequencies. You're working from guilt, doubt, shame, and fear. Where this becomes successful instantaneously and defies the law of time, when you work with the 0 point in conjunction with the energy. Remember, torsion fields carry blueprints, intentions, or codes. So this is necessary when you're working in the DNA or with scalar energy. The 0 point is crucial because the 0 point actually holds the same codes and information as our DNA. And in order to change the DNA, we have to change the information that we're giving our energy field so that we can do this quantum shift. So essentially, torsion fields shape how energy behaves. Huge. Torsion fields shape how energy behaves. Important. You can do all the energy work you want, but you must feed the energy fields high frequency blueprints and the right information. The two torsion fields of energy that are spinning, one is counterclockwise and one is clockwise, in metaphysics is known as the divine feminine and the divine masculine. And when they're in balance, you have that 0 point that you can create from within the field of the heart. Not working in this point is where most modalities fail. I'm just going to be really honest with you. I would never join a group that claims to be spiritual gangsters or spiritual warriors or fighting against the dark. Right there, you're coming from a space of war. You're coming from a space of resistance. You're coming from a fighting energy. The 0 point will not recognize that energy. The 0 point is very light, very peaceful, very loving energy. The only way to access it is to be in that neutral space. You cannot hold resentment. You cannot hold fear. You can't hold the blueprint of war. So we're not spiritual gangsters. We're not fighting against the dark. In the 0 point energy, everything is just information. What we do with the information is our choice. We are sovereign beings. Stepping in our power, stepping in our truth, accessing that 0 point within will give you all of the empowerment that you need. There is duality, but we can bypass it with intent. Let me give you an example of something that happened to me in a natural plant medicine ceremony. I do have wild, crazy examples, but I'm very authentic, so I'm just going to tell you the things I truly experience. I was in a ceremony one time, and I was on the medicine, and I've done about 200 natural plant medicine ceremonies. As you know, we facilitate them within a week. And I went to the bathroom, and I was about ready to leave, but on one side were these beautiful white spiritual beings that I normally work with, which I call my spirit guides. And on the other side were these draconian dragons, where the draconian dragons are what people will say that the reptilian energy works through or the dark energy works through. And they were looking at me and they started chuckling. The draconian dragons did. And they said, "You think that you're coming from a place of peace whenever you feel like you're at war with us. You feel like you need to fight us. So right there is taking you out of your heart space and you're not going where you need to go." And what they said is they said it's universal law that they give us the information about what they're going to do. We choose what we do with it. I'll give you an example, and I talk about this in my book, Upside Down Mirror, which I will reference later. I was dating a gentleman who was strongly influenced by the draconian energies, and that's a whole long story. But during one of our lunches, he stood up and he said, "Rebecca, I have to steal your light. I don't want to. I really don't, but I have to." Well, I was already in love with this gentleman, and I should have got up and ran, right? That was information given to me. But I didn't listen, and I stayed with him. That was my choice. So then, if you decide to read the book, you read all through this, where, yeah, he did try to steal my light. He put me through hell. But it was my choice. I stayed. They gave me the information. Also, the draconian dragon said, "What if we made a time machine, and you're deeming us as bad, and we made a time machine, and we used it for things of unpure intent. But then you had a friend, a best friend who died, and you came across our time machine. Would you use that time machine to go back 5 minutes and save that friend from dying from a car wreck?" Because that's the example they used, is a friend dying in a car wreck. "Would you go back 5 minutes and save your friend from dying in the car wreck?" And I said, "Yes." And they said, "Well, we made that time machine." And then they explained to me it's all about the purity and intent of our heart space. So no matter what it is, we are safe and we can trust as long as we are coming from a space of purity and in the field of our heart. AI is a perfect example of this. Artificial intelligence is very prominent now. Artificial intelligence on its own does not have an intention to hurt us or to help us. It just has the ability to tap into superintelligence. It's the consciousness behind the AI, the person, the intent behind the AI, that determines whether or not it does good or it does bad. That's why right now in these times, it's really important for us to stay in the field of the heart. Because when you're in the field of your heart and you are in your authentic truth, you are in your God center, so to speak. At that point, nothing can hurt you because you're a sovereign being. Even if someone or something were to take AI and try to harm you, because you're residing in your own 0 point, in your own infinite God potential, you will be impervious. Your consciousness can only be hijacked if you're not tapped in to the field of your own heart. So then you can use AI in the opposite way. You can amplify good. You can amplify love. You can amplify gratitude. You could use AI to completely connect the world if that was the intention behind it. We can be influenced by things such as AI depending where we are at within our brainwave state as well. The theta wave state is essential to access the part of our energy fields that we need in order to shift our energy. However, the gamma wave state is active when we go into torsion fields. That's that super intelligent state, the gamma is. It's been proven that instantaneous healings or miracles happen in a gamma theta state. So they're happening in the state where the torsion fields and the energy fields are working together. It's like if you're in a car wreck and your car is spinning and time slows down and you have enough time to think in paragraphs, but it's really just seconds, that's the theta gamma state. That is the energy working with the torsion fields. When you allow yourself to resonate in the state of being from the 0 point, you are activating your light body. You're basically like turning on your light. And then your reality has no choice but to mirror that. And also the people around you have no choice but to shift. Let me tell you something about me, how I'm so absolutely certain that this works. There are times when you know something to be true in your head, but then there are times when you know something to be true because you've just created a miracle in your life. I am so certain about what I teach that I would scream it from the top of rooftops. And if people were laughing at me, I would just scream it louder. I feel sorry for the people that don't see this, that don't live this way. So I have a story to tell you. It could be a long story, but I'm going to shorten it. If you want the ins and outs of this story, then you can read my book, Upside Down Mirror. It's a book about my twin flame journey. However, I'm going to tell you one section of it that is very relevant to what we're talking about. Let me begin by telling you who I am. My name is Rebecca Sullivan. I am the founder and creator of Awake, the Academy of Wealth, Alchemy, and Kinetic Energy. This has been founded since the year of 2017. Before then, I owned and operated 3 primary care and mental health practices. I had 5,000 patients. I'm a very different person. When I first went into the practices, I did not want to have to introduce psychiatry and pharmaceuticals, but there was over 5,000 patients and people were requesting them left and right. I lived in a very rural community, so I had to hire a psychiatrist. And that psychiatrist is the gentleman that I was just talking about that basically said that he had to steal my light. It was a very tumultuous relationship. If there's such thing as being spellbound, which I get now, it was me. I go through that in the book, my insecurities. I was certainly spellbound. And the practice was 100% under my name, so we did a telemedicine program, and he was in charge of the telemedicine program with the paperwork and the licensing. The practice was already up and running when I met him, so basically I just signed off on everything. It turns out that the paperwork was incorrect, so all of the services that were rendered under that license, under that paperwork, were deemed fraudulent, even though they were actually rendered and the people received the services and the practitioners were paid, it still, paperwork-wise, was considered fraudulent. Now, there was much more going on than what I can explain here, but what I can tell you is the next thing that happened for a reason, and I understand it, and it was something I had needed at the time. So we ended up getting audited. We went to court. It was this big court case. I literally saw my spirit guide walking to the judge, and I thought I was okay. The judge sentenced me to 1 year in jail. Everybody was flabbergasted, my entire family. I go into this in the book. The book is like a spiritual, metaphysical, paranormal version of The New Orange is Black. Okay, first of all, I was unable to go to just a jail because there was no jails available for women in the area. So I had to go to a maximum security prison for this charge. If you know about maximum security prisons, there are murderers, there are gang members, there are things that happen in maximum security prisons that way beyond me. It was such an eye-opener for me. But to say I was naive in prison is to put it lightly. The things that had happened in there were crazy, but I was divinely protected, as you would read in the book. Anyways, I was able to get parole after 3 months because of the letters that my clients wrote. And literally, it was just a matter of time before I could get out. It was just in reference to the paperwork. Meanwhile, when I went in, there was this big woman who murdered her husband 18 years ago and decided that she was going to fall in love with me. That whole thing is in the book. But at the end, she set me up. So she went up to this woman who was not all there, and she told the woman to ask me if I wanted to borrow her television. So I said, sure. It was really stupid of me. I gave her some commentary in exchange. And she said, the one thing is I have to get it back working. Okay? Here is the clincher. It never worked in the first place. When I plugged it in, I'm like, oh, this doesn't work. So then I told her this doesn't work. And she was like, oh, no, it worked. She goes, if you don't give me that back working, she goes, you are going down. And she got extremely upset. She got infuriated. She said, I'm going to lunch, and when I get back, I am going to beat the shit out of you. And we are going to the hole. She said, I'm in here for a long time. I have nothing to lose. So if you know anything about prison, when you get into a fight, they don't care who's guilty or innocent. You both go into the hole for probably like 6 weeks. Then they'll have a hearing. That could ruin your parole. And I was getting out in literally probably 3 days. And she was extremely angry at me. She looked wild. She went to lunch, and I remember thinking, I can't go to lunch. I just have to lay here. What I did when I laid there was exactly what I'm telling you. I was in the eye of the storm. The eye of the storm is that 0 point between those two torsion fields. If you think of a storm, you've got the two torsion fields. The eye of the storm is that calm place where the information is. I went into the eye of the storm. How did I get there? I surrendered. But when I was there, I accessed a reality where this wasn't going to happen. I accessed a reality where the information was different. I cleared myself, my energy field, and then I reverse engineered that reality back to me. I promise you, when this woman came back from lunch, she hugged me. She said, it's okay. If you just have a chance, you can replace it when you get out and send me a new one. That was it. In that moment, I knew how powerful this was. This saved me. I then believed, beyond belief, that this works. And that's when I became completely open. I opened my channel to be able to channel awake. Once again, if you want to read this, it's in my 364-page book, An Upside Down Mirror, about this journey that led me to where I am now. My twin flame journey was like being on a gravity machine that spins around, but the conductor forgets to stop it. And finally, when it stops, you're so disoriented and so confused that you're looking for anything to grab onto and anything to ground you. At that moment, when I surrendered, I opened myself up to that state of being, that 0 point, where there is different realities that exist that you have access to, different timelines that you have access to. And as long as your energy field is clear, which I had spent a long time clearing my energy field to make sure it was static free, you can reverse engineer that into your reality. So how I channeled awake was through this. I was a different person after that. I was a very successful energy worker. Even before this happened to me, I had a wait list of clients. I still have a wait list of clients. I don't see clients. In my practice, I had a wait list of clients that was like a year long. So I was very successful at what I did even before this event, but this took it to a whole different level. Let me kind of make a pit stop and tell you how I channeled awake the Academy of Wealth, Alchemy, and Kinetic Energy. Around the age of 16, I really started meditating and connecting with the earth, and I read the book, The Celestine Prophecy, which really helped me understand a lot about the metaphysical world. And I was able to, through meditation, through stillness, I was able to practice getting into the 0 point from a very early age. Then I started to hear my guides speak to me, and what they said to me And everybody, they do have guides. Everybody has guides. They do speak to me, and they told me, we are divine masculine and divine feminine. We are your guardian parents, is what they told me. Your human parents are just human. They make mistakes. They're full of egos. Being a parent doesn't come with a book, and they introduce themselves as that kind of all-knowing energy, which I really loved. And at first, I thought I was crazy, but then I knew I wasn't crazy, because at the age of 19, I was engaged, and all of a sudden my fiance just stopped talking to me. And I was devastated. I couldn't find him. I didn't know where he was. Called him over and over and over again. And I went meditating where I normally do at this waterfall. And I came back, and I was standing there right in front of my apartment, and I heard my guide say, go across the street into this, it was called Dunkin's. It was a burger joint. And I was like, why do you want me to go to a place that serves hamburgers? And they said, just go. I walked in, and there on the phone, because back then they did not have cell phones, was my fiance's best friend with his back towards me, talking to my fiance. And he said, hey, Dano, in 18 hours, we're going to be leaving for Georgia. So my fiance was planning on moving, and that is how I found out. It was through listening and channeling that I was able to correct my life at that point. And so ever since then, I started listening to these guardian parents. One of the times I didn't listen to them was the time when I fell in love with that psychiatrist. I actually cut them out of my life. They would warn me and warn me and warn me, and I was so love spellbound that I didn't listen to them, which is why I think I ended up in prison, which is probably the best thing that happened to me to get me away from him. But what I want to teach you is how to listen to your higher self, which is the part of you that can talk to your guides or talk to that all-knowing energy without going through something bad, without suffering. So Awake will also teach you that. Anyways, after I get out of prison, I'm just on fire. Miracle after miracle and after miracle happened for me because I had accessed the state of being. Rewinding, in the year 2014, I had spent some time clearing out the rivers energetically with this shaman named Forest Speaker. And during one of the river clearings, he said to me, you're supposed to get these portals on your forearms. I got invisible tattoos of the portals that he was speaking of. I didn't know what they were going to be used for, but I knew that someday these portals would be valuable to me. So after I got out of prison, I was sleeping at my now husband's house. We weren't married at the time, and my guardian parents walked into the room. They were these big, tall, white beings with slanted eyes. I was so scared at first because I had never seen them in person, and this wasn't a dream. And at first I looked up and I was terrified. And then the guardian father smiled, and I said, I know you. And he grabbed my forearms where I'd had those tattoos, and he put this warm sludge-like substance in it, and it made my whole body quiver. And I was given codes and downloads that have literally changed my life and other people's lives. Because of the clearing and the surrendering that I did, I became a container to hold this space for other people to receive from. And this is what they told me. They said, we are going to bring our children to you. We're going to use you as a catalyst to bring the Starseed family together. So that is where the Awake students come in. The one thing I'm certain about is every single person who joins Awake is on a twin flame journey, and that they are definitely Starseed. So I woke my husband up. He was my boyfriend at the time, and I said, you're not going to believe what happened. I was a little bit scared. And he said, it's okay, you're okay. And I went to sleep, and then I woke up and I said, Awake, Academy of Wealth, Alchemy, and Kinetic Energy. And then I channeled all of Awake. Every single meditation that is in Awake, I can't remember because I was just a catalyst for the codes to come through the meditation. So there are people that have had spontaneous healings by just listening to the meditations within Awake. It's not me doing the healing. It's my ability to access that 0 point, to be that container where information can travel. The information that's necessary can travel through me to other people. And what I teach them is I teach them to be that container so they can access it for themselves. So it's all about the space you're holding or about the container that you're opening. You are going to be the entrepreneur of your own life, not just the entrepreneur of a business. When you talk about entrepreneur, it's someone that takes charge of themselves. It's someone that takes risks. It's someone that steps in their own power. Entrepreneurs don't listen to what other people tell them to do. They're open, but they are their own leader. You're going to be the entrepreneur of your own life. The only way to do that is to trust yourself, to listen to yourself, to take what you would call a risk. It's really not a risk, it's just opposite than the programming that you've learned. And live for yourself. That is what a life entrepreneur is. That is what manifesting engineer allows you to do. And as a manifesting engineer, your goal is not to have clients that depend on you, but rather for you to inspire these clients to become their own manifesting engineers. Remember, the universe does not operate on linear time. It has already forgiven your past, and it's already made your future loving. So if you can see a future, if you can imagine a future, you can create it. Creation is imagination, and imagination is creation. Love, love, love is the frequency in the 0 point. Love, peace, gratitude. That is why that moment I surrendered in the eye of the storm, I let go. Letting go is important to get into the 0 point. That's something we teach in Awake. I just was like, okay, I'm letting go. I'm letting go of what I think I can do about this. I'm letting the universal consciousness that knows the information on how to solve this in my state of being, in my energy field, so that it can be solved. But it's important that I witnessed it. I had to witness it myself. Because there's many timelines, many possibilities that you have not pulled in, A, because there's too much static for you to see it, and B, you're not witnessing it for yourself. Just like we said at the beginning, so within, so without, so above, so below, what's in here will reflect out there. So Awake teaches you that the only thing you need to be successful is you. You have all the tools in here. When I went to prison, I was not communicating with my higher self. I was very much in my insecure ego, trying to prove that I was worthy of love. You know, like I said, it's all in the book. Okay, so I was not communicating with my higher self. My goal for you is to get you to create a reality where you don't have to experience something similar to what I did. You know, when you experience something bad and you're like, oh my gosh, I can see why that happened. Now look at my life. It's so wonderful. I mean, I've created in a few years what would take most people to create in a lifetime after learning how to access the 0 point. I went from literally losing everything to living on the mountain with ocean view in Costa Rica with this beautiful retreat center, many students, an awesome family, an awesome husband. I have everything I could ever dreamed of, but it was through doing this work. It was through learning to talk to my higher self. So my goal for you is for you not to have to go to prison, be in a bad relationship, to suffer. But let's just skip the static and learn to talk to your higher self. That higher self is the part of you that is already residing in the 0 point frequency, in that field of the heart, in that unconditional love consciousness, the part of you that's not thinking with fear, it's just thinking with the information that it has at hand. Working with your higher self, which we'll teach you to, allows you to come from a space of equilibrium. This is where the modules come in Awake. We help you to learn how to use your intuition, to understand your clairvoyance, and to connect with your ability to channel. Sometimes when people hear the word channeling, they immediately get turned off. They don't understand what channeling is. I want you to think of the universe as omnipresent, which means you have access to a universal library. All of the information that you ever wanted is in a universal library. Channeling is the ability to access that universal library. That is the ability to understand that you have access to the information because you're part of everything that exists. When we channel through the 0 point. We channel through the love. We channel through high frequency. We don't channel low frequencies. Remember, we are bypassing duality. We are channeling unconditional love. We are channeling from a space of peace, calmness, surrender, gratitude. So you're channeling information that will be extremely useful to you. So channeling is walking into the library, finding the information that you want, right? Tracking is finding the actual book that it's in and how can I bring that forth. As I was learning body talk and medical intuition and working in the hologram, which is how you truly heal the physical body, I learned how to do this work. My mentor was Richard Bartlett, who sadly passed away, but the information that he left behind is miraculous. So you need to think of the physical body as a computer, right? The physical body is perfect in its existence. Once you tell the physical body that something's wrong with it, and you make your own physical body aware that something's wrong, and you put that online, it will recalibrate to fix itself. So for example, this is how channeling and tracking work. I walk in, I have a pain under my left shoulder blade. It is killing me. It feels like there's knives being like someone's just taking a knife, like stabbing my back, okay? So he's taking a deep breath, he's connecting, he's channeling the information he needs from me, right? He's channeling me, okay? Because there's a ton of other people in the world. He is channeling Rebecca at this point, okay? He's focused, channeled me. He's accessing my information, channeling. Then he's tracking it. He goes to, oh, this is from the psoas muscle connected to your right outer thigh. So he went into the psoas muscle, started doing work on my psoas muscle, which in Greek mythology is the muscle of the soul, by the way. And then he starts to stretch out it was the right outer thigh. All of a sudden, my back pain went away. Okay, and there was emotions stuck in my muscles, right? So that, I don't want to go into this because I go into it in the modules, but of course, to make the muscles contract the way that they did, they were holding emotions, they were holding energy, that all had to be freed. But he had the ability to channel and track, oh, psoas muscle, right thigh. So that is how channeling and tracking works in the physical body. Channeling and tracking works with wealth, with love, with really everything. Which, by the way, if I wouldn't have corrected it, it would have eventually led to hip problems because it originated in the sacral chakra. So by releasing that physical pain, I was releasing emotional pain, I was clearing out the chakras, and as I was doing that, I was clearing out my static. I was able to go into the 0 point frequency, pull on a reality that I wanted. Instead of this pain, I pulled it into myself, and now I'm fine. I can go surfing again. You can learn to do this, I promise. It's extremely fun. It becomes a way of life. This isn't a typical school where you're like, oh, I have to go to school today. You will be excited to do each module. I'm going to give you another example, probably the most miraculous healing that I'd ever seen, that I had been a privilege to be a part of. Kayla, who is on my testimonial page. So if you want to hear her talk about this, go to my testimonial page. She was 16 when this happened. She had a miraculous healing that saved her life. I was blessed enough to be the vehicle or the catalyst to this healing. Her mom had reached out to me. She was dying. She was on her deathbed. She was walking with a cane. She was diagnosed with severe Lyme, but also all of her organs were shutting down. She'd never been able to breathe her entire life. Like I said, she was literally on her deathbed. Her mom flew her from California to Pennsylvania, and she comes to see me. I was very nervous. I wanted to turn around and essentially run away at one point, but this is once again after that incident in prison where I'd already accessed the knowledge, already accessed that 0 point. So the first thing I did was I got there and I just took a deep breath. I let go. I know nothing, right? So the channeling is really important because once again, you're just going to that library. So you don't know everything in the library. The library is going to tell it to you, right? So I just kind of opened up that space. What I did was I said, okay, this definitely has something to do with pregnancy. It was something to do in pregnancy is where it began. And then her mother said, oh, my water broke 16 hours before her birth. Well, if you know anything about pregnancy, water breaking that early is very harmful to the baby because the baby is not moving then. All the water is gone, so the baby's doing this. That is the first space that she was put in fight or flight. So in the testimonial, she tells you, I could never breathe my entire life because she had been in fight or flight her entire life. And because she was in fight or flight her entire life, all of her organs were shutting down and they diagnosed her with Lyme's. However, when I said to her body, because I said to her body, I gave her body that information, oh, this is because of the pregnancy, you weren't able to move. The baby wasn't able to move. That's all I did, okay? So I channeled and I tracked the energy, right? And then Kayla's body received it, heard it, okay? And then what we did is we just touched her at certain places. We touched her in her adrenal glands because the adrenals are the fight or flight. So we were saying to the adrenals, hey, wake up. Okay, look what had happened. We got to correct this. Now, this is a girl who couldn't walk. During this process of healing, she actually got up and she started to make these movements, like ballet movements. And she said to me, Rebecca, why am I doing ballet movements? She was doing what she would have done in the womb, or if the amniotic fluid wouldn't have left. Her body wouldn't have went into fight or flight, so it was recorrecting itself. And then she just started doing a series of movements and breathing work. Basically, she was putting her body in a situation and in a space where she was accessing new information about what should have happened, and all of her body started to correct from A to Z. It was like she got into a time machine, went back to before birth, put the water back in her womb, and then everything just corrected itself. And by the morning, she was completely healed. She was dying. So that was 2 days before her 17th birthday. And since then, she's completed Awake, and she even does the activation sessions and heals people that are in Awake because she now knows what it's like to access that point because she is a manifesting engineer. She's accessed the point. She healed herself. She understands the 0 point. So now she is one of the people that we employ in Awake to do the activation sessions with you. It's absolutely miraculous work. Like I said, I didn't do anything. All I did was hold that space where I had a universal library, okay? If you think that you are doing the work and you're doing the healing, you aren't holding space for the universe to come in and give you the information. If you are taking a modality where you're trying to learn something with your brain, where there's a technique that you have to do, you're blocking the universe from working through you. What I'm teaching is I'm teaching how to clear people's energy fields of the static, and that includes healing their trauma, etc., in order to access the torsion fields with the information that you actually desire and bring that forth. So it's like you're going to be a walking universal library. That's what I call being activated. So that when you want to help somebody, you can access that library, and with your intention and focus, you can then lead them into healing, which will guide them into accessing that library for themselves. And if the whole world could do this, the whole world would be living in peace. When you see people shift, when you see them truly shift, when they receive new information from the torsion fields, from the 0 point, and then it starts to communicate with their physical body, you'll see them shake. I'm sure you've seen that in energy healings. It is their body assimilating to the new information. Their physical body literally has to assimilate. It's re-encoding their cells, their DNA. So during that re-encoding, the body starts shaking, which whenever I work with people, they do that a lot. We have that go on a lot within Awake. That is a compliment. That is your body rewiring itself. It's your body assimilating into this new reality. Some people get scared of that. That's not something to get scared of. Here is a live example of what I'm talking about within one of the live Zoom calls in Awake that just recently happened.
That little tiny crack, I guess that's how it happened last month, and it just spiraled from there. It's like moving really slowly. I was having a hard time trying to even get onto here, and I'm like, what is going on? And thank you right now. Your presence is doing something.
Okay, so this was a breakout Zoom call that we do in Awake. It was just a Thursday afternoon breakout call where you're put in different rooms with practice partners, and she had came on the call because she had fallen and cracked her head a bit and felt like she had a concussion, but she started to feel a lot of pressure in her eyes. She started to feel like she was having tunnel vision. Her neurological functioning was declining. She felt like she was actually moving in slow motion, like she was unable to focus even on taking a phone call, and she said she could barely get on the call. So what we did is we did the healing that we are describing. I had went into the room and opened that space to go into the 0 point. And when she started to go into the 0 point, she accessed the information in the quantum field that would allow her to heal her body. Once again, that's putting the body online. And as you notice, her body is moving, it's shaking, it's even convulsing, if you will. Her eyes, I want you to notice this, her eyes are rolling in the back of her head. That is extremely important. You'll notice in ancient spiritual practices, when people do this, their eyes are rolling in the back of their head to access the pineal gland, to access an altered state of consciousness, to access the old brain, that's the primal brain, that knows how to heal us. Our body can and will self-correct if we allow it to. So that is what she's doing. The key here is we are holding space, because this could be scary if you didn't know what was going on. And this is what happens to a lot of people when they first start healing. They're not used to their body self-correcting beyond their control. But when she surrendered into it, she accepted it. It felt really good for her. She was very grateful. And basically her body did completely heal itself during this call. It took about 7 minutes. I cut out some of it just because it was quite lengthy, but it took about 7 minutes to do this complete healing, and her body was able to get in that space, get into the 0 point, find the new information, bring it back into her physical body, and her physical body started to recalibrate, and her body did the movements that was necessary in order to allow her body to get online and heal. And you will also notice that she is having an extreme emotional release, which probably the emotions that were in a quantum field probably attracted the concussion. So this is part of the release when you're doing this healing.
Thank you all so much. Wow. Thank
Yeah.
you. I feel better. Like, oh my gosh. Even like listening. So it's like I'm healed.
DNA encoding and reengineering is one of the most important modules that we have. You know, if you look in anatomy books, they will say that we have junk DNA. And that's DNA that basically is worthless. But now they're starting to find out, and you can do research on this, that this is actually not junk DNA, but rather dormant DNA. And in that dormant DNA, there is evolutionary possibilities. This is the DNA that's waiting to be awakened. In DNA is complete sacred geometry. That's what DNA is. If you take it under a microscope, it's sacred geometry, it's codes. This is the same sacred geometry, the same information and codes that exist in the 0 point field of energy. Doesn't exist just in our energy fields. It exists in the torsion field of the 0 point. So when we access different realities of higher vibration and bring it into our energy field that's clearostatic, it then awakens the dormant DNA, but not just awakens the dormant DNA, it re-encodes the current DNA so that we're not repeating the stories of our ancestors. We are rewriting our stories because there's no such thing as time. We don't have to live through the stories of our ancestors. We can keep the high vibrational frequencies that we want to keep, but that we can re-encode the lower vibrational frequencies that are no longer useful for us. This is one of the most powerful modules, the DNA encoding and engineering, that's in Awake. And you have to go to the DNA to be able to truly heal. The DNA is extremely important. Within the DNA is the golden ratio and the Fibonacci sequence. The Fibonacci sequence is like part of the tree of life. It exists in everything: music, art, money. So once again, this is helping you to re-encode different information into your field, not just into your field, but into your DNA, where you can then shift your life. You'll notice that when you do this work in Awake, especially in plant medicine retreats, you're going to see a lot of sacred geometry that comes in through your third eye. One of the things I tell people is, as it comes in, roll your eyes in the back of the head to activate the old brain. Let your body assimilate to these codes, the sacred geometry that you see when you're in healing, when you're in the process of doing Awake, is extremely important to re-encoding the DNA. And this is where you're awakening that star seed in you. Starseed being is essentially someone with awakened DNA. So you'll hear that a lot, like, what starseed are you? You have a lot of DNA in you that's ready to be awakened, where you can claim your starseed heritage. Then your whole life just starts to change. Things just start to go in sync. Things become paranormal, metaphysical. You start to connect dots that you've never connected before. DNA holds the stories. It is the blueprint that holds stories of our ancestors. It's patterns of information, and these stories will repeat themselves unless we re-encode them. The only way to re-encode the actual DNA is getting the sacred geometry and the information from the torsion field of the 0 point, not just doing energy work. You have to access the new information. This is also known as epigenetics, which is very popular in the medical world today. Epigenetics is the re-encoding of the DNA. It's like, okay, they treat it as software. We can reprogram ourselves. And as we're recoding the DNA, we start to gain our abilities of intuition, clairvoyance, connecting to higher states of consciousness. We're able to travel interdimensionally. That's whenever you talk about astral traveling, etc., you're just awakening yourself. Remember, you can't do it with your brain. You're doing it with the 0 point. One exercise that I did to help me to clear the static from my field said, how am I brainwashed? Because if you're brainwashed, you don't know you're brainwashed. I know that. So I can be brainwashed. I'm open to the idea that I can be brainwashed. That right there is a really big opening to have, okay? When we think we're always right, we know everything, we are very set in our ways. We don't want to be set in our ways. That's where neuroplasticity comes in. When you're little, you're flexible, you're open-minded. That's why you can spin, right? Your brain is plastic. Plastic means it's flexible. It has lots of different connections that are still able to be made. Okay, it's curious. Think of it this way. Your brain is curious, okay? It's plastic. They call it plastic. As you become programmed, you become set in your ways. And these little curious receptors die away because they're not needed. There's no more curiosity in your life. You're set. Okay, everything is just hard. It's no longer plastic, it's solid, it's hard. And that's why when we get older, it's hard for us to spin because we get dizzy, because we don't have those receptors in our brains that are willing to accept that type of movement in our life. So you'll notice if you ever read the book by Drunvalo Melchizedek, Flower of Life, one of the exercises they do in there is to have you spin every day. Put your thumbs together, stand up and spin. And this is to reset you neurologically, to start to become more plastic, to receive new information. Well, through this work, when you think through the field of the heart, when you think through the 0 point, you're also resetting your plasticity. Once you start thinking with the 0 point, once you start thinking with the heart, your brain has no choice but to rewire to think like your heart. So if you're always following your heart, your brain has to rewire itself. It starts to make better, healthier decisions. Back to the brainwashing. So when I ask myself, how am I brainwashed? The cool thing is when you get to this, you can play with it. And the universe will always give you the answers. So remember, when you access that 0 point and you're saying like, hey, library, tell me how I'm brainwashed. The first day after I did that, I literally can't remember what, it's a Disney movie I believe I was watching with my daughter. And there was a bird that was caged and the other birds were trying to save it. And I thought to myself, when I was little, I thought that was normal. When I was little, we had a cockatoo. We actually had a caged bird. And I completely thought that was normal for the longest time. We as humans have taken the one thing that symbolizes freedom, which is birds, they have wings, okay? We would love to have wings. And we have caged them and made them into pets. But not only that, we actually think that's okay. I realized, wow, Rebecca, that is major brainwashing. Okay, so I no longer think that's okay. But then that led to openings and openings and openings of other ways that I have been brainwashed. And as I have deprogrammed myself, the universe has gratefully helped me. It'll help you through electromagnetic frequencies. Remember, our energies travel through electromagnetic frequencies, right? So when I said to the Universal Library of the Zero Point, please show me how I'm brainwashed, it sent the message through a child's program through the television to let me know. You'll get radio messages, you'll get messages through your email, text messages, billboards. It'll show up right in front of your face once you ask for it. And this is when you're playing in the field. That is one reason I love play. Play is psychedelic languaging, activation, and encoding, which can be a part of Awake if you decide to join it. And what it's taking plant medicine, and plant medicine gets you in this field fast. It gives you a reference point of that connection where even when you're off the plant medicine, you can go back to it. It's completely changed my life. It's its own language. That's why it's called play, psychedelic languaging, activation, and encoding. It does everything fast forward that I'm talking about with getting you into the zero point, helping you to release the static, purge all of that static out of your body, and then giving you a reference point of the reality that you can exist in. But I call it play too because we play. I love to play. I like to have fun. You can have fun and heal. You do not need to suffer. Talk about manifesting. In my practice, I created a container of 5,000 patients when I had my mental health and primary care practices that were suffering, that we were feeding pharmaceutical medications to that just made their life worse. Sure, I intended to open that container. I actually built the building that housed these sick patients. I used to brag about that manifestation. Before I shut down my practice, we were actually thinking about building on the rooftop because there's more patients coming in. Like I said, I had a year, 2 years waiting list. So that was nothing to be proud of. I opened the container for sickness. Okay, we weren't playing in that field. Okay, now I've opened a container to play, to have fun, to bypass your static, to play in the zero point, to let the universe show you what's possible and for you to reverse engineer it into your reality. So I also want you to think about torsion fields, that field in the heart. I want you to compare it to like the black hole that they have in the universe. That's that within, without, above, so below. You know, in our external reality, what would the field of the heart be in the universe? What would that equivalent to in the external reality? Think of it as the black holes, right? And then within those black holes, they've already talked about the black holes as being vacuums, as the potential to time travel, right? To leap through timelines. Okay, but think of the wormholes. Okay, the wormholes are what you would go through, okay, to get from point A to point B. That would be intention. So if you were going through a black hole, which was your time travel ability, but you wanted to go to the year 1910, if time existed, you would take a wormhole to get there, okay? That's tachyon energy. Well, that's essentially like us opening up portals, which we do in play, right, to different realities. So we get into the zero point, and then I teach this in play, and we open up portals to where we want to go. And knowing a portal is just intention. It's like, okay, if there was an opening from me being in this reality, but I wanted to go into this reality, and I wanted to open a portal to that, what would that look like? I personally love to open up portals to unconditional love and for things to be in my highest truth. Okay, so sometimes I don't know what I need in my reality, but I know I need something different. So I let the universe tell me what it is. Okay, and I'll open up a portal to unconditional love and truth and what's in my highest and best being. I'm going to give you an example of this, and I actually have a really cool picture of it that I'm going to show you right now. I decided to protect our house when we lived Deep Creek Lake, It was this beautiful house on the lake. And with my now 8-year-old, I told her we were going to open up a portal. I said, we're going to start out with opening a divine masculine portal, okay? And we're going to surround the house. I don't know why I did it in 2 parts, but I had channeled to do this in 2 parts. So her and I went and we put on a song that she had chosen, and we opened up a portal to pure, unconditional love of the divine masculine. This is what it looked like. Here's the picture. Then a few days later, my husband was going to the airport to pick up his mother. She'd flown from England. Just a quick backstory on his mother. She has never given my daughter a hug, told my daughter she loves her. She buys her tons of gifts, but doesn't know how to show affection. This woman was raised in an orphanage when she was little. She doesn't really connect. She doesn't know how to connect. But then when he was going to pick her up from the airport, I was like, you know what? We need to finish this portal, I told Willow, and we need to open up the divine feminine. And then I said, I wonder what song we're going to use for that. And we had just eaten at Denny's, and Girls Just Want to Have Fun came on. So her and I turned on the song Girls Just Want to Have Fun and opened up the divine feminine aspect of the portal. And now I want you to see the picture. This is what it looks like with the divine feminine mixed with the divine masculine. And it's this beautiful, almost third eye around our house. It's gorgeous. Not only that, okay, so remember, the divine masculine, the divine feminine is opening up that torsion field, okay? That is the 0 point. The balance of the masculine and feminine is the 0 point. An apple tree grew, like overnight. My neighbors even came and they were looking at it and they're like, where did this come from? And my husband was like, we have never seen this before. And we ate these magical apples that came from where we opened this portal. And even before we moved, because we moved from Deep Creek Lake to Costa Rica, we had said, we're really going to miss this house because it's divinely protected. Like, we didn't get sick in the house. Nothing bad ever happened in the house. His mother comes. She gets extremely sick, which if you know anything about plant medicine ceremonies, when people are purging their negative energies or their low frequency energies, they get sick. They throw up or they'll have diarrhea. They have to purge those energies out. That's why we get sick as human beings, because our bodies no longer need that. Our fever is the rising of the Kundalini. And then we purge what's no longer necessary, and we only know how to do that through throwing up and diarrhea. But really, you can do it through life force breath. Once you learn this work, you will never have to get physically sick. But it takes a while for people to learn this. So his mom came. She got very sick for 3 days, and she was like, I am as sick as I've been for a very long time. She goes, why is this happening to me? I showed her a picture of the portals. This is how authentic I am. And I told her what we did. And my husband was looking at me like, what are you doing? And all she said to me was, I wish you would have told me sooner. She was very open to the idea. She was very open to the idea because I owned it. I owned my truth. But the magical part of this is we took her out dancing once she got better at the lake. And she hadn't really talked to a man in quite some time. She had been divorced for about 30 years. And this gentleman came up and asked her to dance, and they actually danced all night. And I have a feeling it was because we opened up that portal and she was able to purge the stagnant energy that was preventing love from coming in. The only boundary that you're ever going to have to put up is your truth. Living your truth, being your authentic self, loving yourself will get you in the 0 point and free you in every way that you can possibly imagine. So this can also be compared to the many worlds theory too. So in the many worlds theory, basically what it is saying is that when we have a choice to make, every single possibility of that choice exists simultaneously. Okay, so we already have simultaneous realities or timelines that exists in the universe somewhere. Okay, so if you ever had to make a choice in your life, like what you wanted to do for a career, and you were thinking about being a nurse, there is a reality where you are a nurse living a whole different life. So that's the many worlds theory. So essentially, each parallel reality holds a different set of information. And with this work, you can access those different timelines. So what you can do is you can go into the 0 point field of energy, and you can say, I want to access the timeline where this is happening for me. And you can pull that timeline in, and then your world will start changing. And how that looks, because I've done that, because it needs to change in a way that you can accept. But if you're paying attention to what's different, which is key to this work, you will see it and it will build upon itself. So for example, in this reality, maybe your neighbor never talks to you and she's always in a bad mood and she's complaining, right? And then you do this work and you wake up in the morning and that same neighbor looks at you and says, "Hi, how are you?" Everything else looks the same, but you now have this beautiful, nice neighbor. You need to pay attention to that. That is different. And then you start to open yourself up to the differences in this new reality. Okay, the neighbor's nicer. What else is different about this new reality? So that's essential. When you start to do this work, you don't want to look for what's the same because you'll just go back to the old reality. You want to look for what's different so that you can start to build upon those differences and see the whole picture of what you've created. Another very important part that I'm telling you now, but that we also talk about in Awake. Okay, so remember, channeling, tracking, reverse engineering, extremely, extremely important, powerful energy. Let's talk about how this can help. We've talked about how it helps with the physical body, okay? Let's talk about how this can help in a wealth situation. There was a gentleman that came to a ceremony and he was about 65 years old and he had a lot of programming or static around making money. And his programming was, he remembers his dad getting up, going to work, working really hard, coming home, making money. Essentially, that's how he defined his masculinity. His dad did that. And then this gentleman also, that's how he defined his masculinity, was how hard he's working, how much time through the day that he took out to work, how much stress work had put on him. Okay, so in the healing that we did, we got rid of that static. We got rid of that programming, redefined masculinity. The divine masculine is not about working harder, it's about working smarter. So we went through all of that, did the programming, got him into the 0 point. He had made, this is where it defies time, he had made an investment 2 days before coming to the retreat of $6,500. The day after he left the retreat, that investment went up to $165,000 just through the reprogramming that he did in that retreat, accessing new information. It substantially raised his investment. So that's just an example of wealth. So we had the physical body example earlier with Kayla, with myself, and the wealth. Now let's talk about love. I'm going to give you another example of how getting into the 0 point can help you in intimate twin flame relationships. So remember that the torsion fields that we're talking about, one is spinning counterclockwise and the other is spinning clockwise. So that's one spin is divine masculine and the other spin is the divine feminine. Okay, and in the middle of that is the balance. So whenever you're working on activating your kundalini, this is what they're talking about. They are talking about balancing and clearing your chakras from the static so that the life force energy can flow gracefully, effortlessly, and easily through your body, and then start to flow out into the quantum field and to eventually reach that all that is energy and go into the 0 point, okay? When you balance the masculine and feminine within yourself, you are in that state of being that we're talking about, that 0 point field of consciousness. Remember, when you're in this 0 point field of consciousness, you are divinely protected. That's why you don't have to go into this being a spiritual warrior, fighting against the dark, being a spiritual gangster. You just go into it with finding that space within, and I promise you, you will be divinely protected. I have a really cool example of this. You're going to want to balance the masculine and feminine within you. So you're going to want to have that balance within you so that you can reach that 0 point. Essentially, manifesting a twin flame for me would be, okay, I've balanced, or at least a harmonic twin flame would be, I've balanced that divine feminine and masculine within me. I'm then going to embrace my divine femininity and then attract my divine counterpart of the divine masculine, and the two of us together will come into balance. It doesn't mean that we have roles. It just means that in this lifehood, I've embodied the divine feminine, he's embodied the divine masculine, and we've come together to balance one another. But within us, We have our own balance of divine, masculine, and feminine. And this looks different for everybody. Not everybody is in opposite sex relationships. It can also happen within the same sex relationships. It's still the same balance. Okay, so I was in an ayahuasca ceremony, and at this point, I was just the observer. I was not the facilitator. And there was this, and I'd never seen these two people before. I didn't know anything about them. And there was this woman who clearly was the embodiment of divine feminine. You know, I was on the brew and I was watching her, and she went into the middle of the circle and she lit incense, and she was really inward. She was really in her feminine. She wasn't looking around her. You could tell she was very secure in her femininity. She didn't really look like she cared at all what was going on around her. She looked like she was playing within herself, that she was so imbalanced and so in tune with herself that she was really just creating this magic. Okay, so at this time, she caught my attention because of just like I said, she just radiated divine feminine energy. So then I was watching this man start to walk towards her. And as he started to go towards her, he would stop. It was almost as like some magnetic force was stopping him. And he'd start throwing up, because when you have low frequency energy in ayahuasca, you tend to once again throw it up or have diarrhea. You purge it. And that's how he was choosing to purge it. He was purging this, okay? So then he would do a purge because he had his bucket, and then he would start to walk closer towards her. And then once again, it's like a magnetic force hit him, and he purged again. He must have did this 5 or 6 times, okay? So he had purged all that low frequency, stagnant energy before he could even touch her. Then he walked up and he started massaging her shoulders, and he reached over and kissed her on the cheek. And then I realized that they were a couple. I did not realize they were a couple before. But what I noticed is because there was something preventing him from matching her divine femininity, he literally couldn't get close to her. She didn't have to protect herself. There was a magnetic force that was protecting this woman. So I could not help it. After the ceremony, I went up and I talked to them. And I told them what I witnessed. And then she told me about how they had been having trouble, and that they had been on the verge of breaking up, that there was infidelity with him, et cetera, et cetera. And this was the ceremony that they were coming to work on themselves. They were trying to work through the relationship. And I watched it happen. I watched how the universe would not allow him to come close to her while she was in her divine feminine, while she was in the 0 point. She didn't have to put up fists and fight. She was playing. She was having fun. She was at peace and divinely protected. That's what I want for you. Once you just get into this energy, and you tap into it, and you believe it, and you know it's real, and you have faith, right? Faith is very powerful energy. Faith will get you directly into that 0 point. Once you learn how to do this, you will become a manifesting engineer. You will manifest into reality what you want. Health-wise, wealth-wise, love-wise, I am healthier than I've ever been. I am a 50-year-old woman that is still on her period every month, that is still ovulating. I go surfing, I run, I do yoga, I play. There is nothing wrong with my physical body. I am in a really good relationship where we communicate deeply now. I mean, deeply. So my love life is phenomenal. I manifest wealth as I need it, but I do it in a way that I love. This is my passion. This is my purpose. This is who I am. And that is what I'm inviting you to do. I'm inviting you to find your passion through Awake. I would love for you to become a manifesting engineer and to use the submodalities like quantum shifting, shamanism, mediumship, NLP, hypnotherapy, DNA encoding and reengineering to create a practice of your own. Be a speaker, design your own classes. I will help you do that on the business calls. But if you just want to do this for yourself, because maybe you're already in a good life, maybe you already have a good career, but you're like, you know what? I know I can fly. I know that I can create whatever I imagine, and you want to do it. This is for you. This is for anybody who wants to activate that dormant DNA. Anybody who wants to access the reality that they can dream about. I really hope to see you at the retreats. We have these magical, amazing retreats in Costa Rica. Like I said, we do the plant medicine, but we have retreats where we don't do plant medicine as well, where we just practice these techniques and we play with each other and we create our realities together and we do quantum shifting. But we use this beautiful area of Nosara, Costa Rica as a vacation as well. Surfing, snorkeling, horseback riding, ATVing, yoga, sound healing. Sound healing is a big part of Awake as well. Something else is Tantra. Tantra is making love to your life. You're here because of an orgasm. So Tantra is very important. It's using that sacral chakra to start to manifest. Anyways, I hope to see you in Awake, and thank you for listening to this video. And you will be also receiving in your email a meditation to a 0-point activation. If you haven't already, schedule a consultation with me about joining Awake. Promise you, you will not regret it. This is a really quick diagram of how Awake is outlined. In the middle is the certification of you being certified in me, which is you, the manifesting engineer. And then the little arrows to the sub-certifications, such as the 0-point acceleration, quantum shifting, NLP and life coaching, hypnotherapy, medical intuitive and body talk, DNA encoding and re-engineering, sound healing, Reiki 1, 2 and Reiki master, mediumship, shamanism. This is all very important. They all really go in with channeling and tracking, and they're very good sub-certifications to have. And within Awake, you do have the one-to-one mentoring. We have business calls to get you up and running. Question answer calls where we do demonstrations, we answer your questions, we see how this is coming out through your life. We even have Manifestation Monday calls. We have live practice calls where you're practicing and doing this with other students in Zoom rooms while you're being supervised and helped by myself or somebody else. We have group healing calls. We have a private Facebook. You have access to free 15-minute healing and activation sessions weekly by expert practitioners. We have sound healing calls. And also we have the awesome retreats in Costa Rica that are plant medicine and non-plant medicine, in which I was talking about.